My name is Officer Derek Mitchell, and I've been a police officer for 15 years. During all that time, I've answered hundreds of 911 calls. Most were routine cases, domestic disputes, traffic accidents, alarms triggered by mistake. But 3 calls in particular haunt me to this day. 3 nights that made me question everything I thought I knew about the evil that exists in this world. I'm going to share these stories with you, but I must warn you. Some of the things I saw cannot be undone. Some images will be etched in your mind forever. Story 1. The House in the Forest, Eureka, California, autumn 2018. It was a particularly cold October night when I received the call on the radio. Unit 23, we have a call regarding a possible home invasion at 1847 Redwood Forest Road. Callers report hearing voices and movements inside the residence. Homeowners are out of town. I got the address and headed there. The house was isolated, surrounded by giant sequoias that blocked any moonlight. The kind of place where you can't see your hand in front of your face without a flashlight. When I arrived, I found a woman in her 60s on the sidewalk shivering, not just from the cold. She was the neighbor who had called 911. "Officer, I swear I heard voices in there," she said, pointing to the dark house. "The Morrisons are visiting their daughter in Portland. There's no one who should be there." I grabbed my flashlight and approached the residence. The front door was ajar, a sign of forced entry. I announced my presence loudly and clearly. "Police department, if anyone is inside, come out with your hands visible." Absolute silence. I entered slowly, sweeping each room with my flashlight. The living room was untouched, the kitchen too. But when I reached the hallway leading to the bedrooms, I smelled that scent. It wasn't the usual smell of an empty house. It was something putrid, sweet and nauseating all at once, like decaying flesh mixed with incense. Hard to describe. I followed the scent to the last room at the end of the hall. The door was closed. I slowly turned the doorknob and pushed it open. What I saw made me recoil instantly. The entire wall was covered in strange symbols, drawn with what appeared to be blood. In the center of the room, a perfect circle had been drawn on the wooden floor, and inside that circle, there were 6 chairs arranged in a hexagon shape. In each chair sat an antique doll, all dressed in children's clothing from the 1800s. But the most disturbing thing, each doll had a different photograph pasted over its porcelain face. These were photos of children, real children. In the center of the circle, there was a 7th chair, empty, waiting. My hand instinctively went to the radio when I heard it, a whisper coming from inside the room. 7. We need 7. We're missing one. I turned my flashlight in every direction. Nothing. I was completely alone. But the whisper continued, as if it were coming from the walls themselves. "She's coming?" "She always comes when we call." That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. One of the photographs on the dolls. I knew that girl. It was Sarah Morrison, the granddaughter of the owners. I had seen her in photos in the living room, and the empty chair in the center had a name written in red chalk on the seat. Sarah. I ran outside and called for backup immediately. When the investigation team arrived, they found more disturbing details. The other 5 children in the photographs had all disappeared in the region over the past 40 years. Unsolved cases. We managed to alert the Morrison family in time. Sarah was safe in Portland, but we never found out who prepared that room or what that ritual was supposed to do. The house was demolished 6 months later, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear that whisper in my head. One is missing. Story 2. The Silent Call, Bangor, Maine, winter 2019. The 911 call came in at 3:47 a.m. I was on night patrol when the dispatcher called over the radio. "Unit 23, we have a strange situation. Open call to 911, but no one is speaking. We can only hear heavy breathing and what sounds like muffled crying." We traced the address to 2156 Hammond Street, apartment 4B. "On my way," I replied. Silent calls usually mean two things. Either someone called by mistake, or someone is in danger but can't speak. Considering the breathing and crying, it was clearly the second option. I arrived at the building in less than 5 minutes. It was one of those old apartment buildings with thin walls and creaky stairs, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else's business. I went up to the 4th floor and stopped in front of door 4B. I pressed my ear against the wood. Nothing. Total silence. I knocked on the door. Police department, we received a call from this address. No response. I knocked again, harder. If there's anyone in there who needs help, please make some noise. That's when I heard it. Faint, but unmistakable. Knocking coming from inside the apartment. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks again. SOS. I didn't wait any longer. Breaking down the door was easy. Those old locks don't hold up for long. I went in with my gun in one hand and the flashlight in the other. Police, identify yourself. The apartment was dark and silent, but I could hear heavy breathing coming from somewhere ahead of me. I followed the sound to the bedroom. The door was ajar. I pushed it open slowly and let in some light inside. A woman was tied to a chair in the center of the room, gagged with duct tape. Her wide eyes stared at me in pure terror. She was trying to scream through the gag, shaking her head frantically. It wasn't a "help me" sign, it was a "get out of here" sign. I understood too late. I felt the presence behind me, a fraction of a second before feeling the blow to the back of my neck. I fell to my knees, dizzy, my vision blurred. I saw a figure move around me, a tall man, wearing dirty overalls and a surgical mask. He grabbed my gun before I could react. "You weren't part of the plan," he said in a calm, almost polite voice. But I improvise well. I struggled to stay conscious as he dragged me to another chair. I could see the room better now. There were tools neatly arranged on a table, saws, pliers, scalpels, all clean and organized like surgical instruments, and photographs, dozens of them hanging on the walls with pins, different women, all tied to chairs, all with that same expression of absolute terror. "You know," he continued as he tied my hands, "I've always wanted to add a police officer to my collection. It's going to be a special piece." The woman in the other chair was now crying uncontrollably. Through the tape over her mouth, I could hear a muffled sound that seemed like, "Sorry, sorry." That's when I realized she wasn't apologizing for not being able to warn me in time. She was apologizing because she had been forced to make that 911 call. She was the bait. The man approached me with a scalpel in his hand. "Let's start with something simple," he said. "I always begin with the fingers, the fear in their eyes when they realize that each part is permanent. It's wonderful." My training kicked in, even through the fog of pain in my head. He had tied my hands, but hadn't checked my ankles. I waited for him to lean in close enough. When he was inches from my face, admiring his work with the ropes, I threw my foot up with all the force I could muster. I hit him squarely on the chin. He staggered back, dropping the scalpel. What followed was a desperate struggle. Even with my hands tied, I managed to knock the chair over and roll over to where my gun had fallen. With trembling fingers, I picked it up and pointed it at him as he recovered. "On the ground! Now!" He obeyed, but he was smiling behind that mask. I could see his eyes, and there was no fear in them, just amusement. Reinforcements arrived minutes later. They found a secret basement in the apartment with evidence of at least 12 victims over 8 years. The woman he had used as bait survived. She later told me that he held her hostage for 6 days, forcing her to make 3 silent calls to 911 before mine. The first 2 police officers who responded to the calls were never seen again. We found their badges in his collection. That man is now on death row. But sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, sweating profusely, remembering that smile in his eyes, as if it were all just a game he was enjoying playing. And the worst part, during the interrogation, he said something that haunts me to this day. I had a partner, you know. He's out there continuing our work, and he knows your name now, Officer Mitchell. Story 3. The Last Cult, Asheville, North Carolina, summer 2021. The call came in during my afternoon shift. A frantic female voice on 911. Please, you need to come. They took my daughter. They took her to the farm. They're going to... Oh God, they're going to do that to her. The call was cut off before the dispatcher could get more information. But we were able to trace the location, a rural property about 40 kilometers outside of Asheville. I was dispatched along with 3 other units. During the journey, the dispatcher gave us more information she had obtained from the caller before the line dropped. A woman named Rebecca Turner, whose 16-year-old daughter, Emma, had been taken by members of a religious community living on an isolated farm in the mountains. When we arrived at the property, what we saw was unsettling from the start. A large wooden gate with carved symbols blocked the dirt road. Above it, a faded sign read, New Light, Community of Faith and Rebirth. We tried to make contact via the intercom, but no one answered. Based on the urgency of the call and the fact that it involved a minor possibly in danger, we had probable cause to enter. We broke down the gate. The dirt road stretched for almost 2 kilometers through abandoned fields. As we drove on, we began to see worrying signs. Wooden crosses stuck in the ground every 50 meters. Clothes hanging from dead trees, swaying in the wind, and a smell. That unmistakable smell of decay. Finally, we arrived at a cluster of buildings. A large main house, almost a mansion, and several smaller structures around it. Barns, sheds, and what appeared to be wooden cabins. The place was silent, too silent. We got out of the cars with our weapons drawn. Police department, we're looking for Emma Turner. If anyone can hear us, please respond. Nothing. We decided to split up. 2 officers checked the main house, while my partner, Officer Rodriguez, and I would check the sheds. The first shed was empty, just old farm tools and bales of moldy hay. The second had something more disturbing. Walls covered with handwritten religious writings, but these weren't normal Bible verses. They were distorted messages about purification through blood and rebirth through sacrifice. It was in the third warehouse that we found the entrance. A wooden trap door was in the floor, partially hidden under straw. We opened it and found a ladder leading down into the darkness. A horrible smell rose from below. Blood, excrement, and something chemical, like formaldehyde. This is Officer Mitchell, I said on the radio. We found something. Possible underground entrance in Warehouse 3. We're going to investigate. We descended the stairs. Our flashlights illuminated a hand-dug earthen corridor supported by wooden beams. The walls bore more writing, this time painted with what was clearly blood. The corridor opened into a larger chamber. What we saw there will haunt me forever. It was a kind of underground temple. Lit torches illuminated the stone walls. In the center, a stone altar stained red. And around the altar, bodies, at least 20 of them, all wearing white robes stained with blood, arranged in a perfect circle. They looked like they had taken poison, dried foam around their mouths, their eyes wide open, staring blankly into nothingness. Mass suicide. But the worst was yet to come. Behind the altar, there was a metal door. It was locked from the outside. We could hear sounds coming from behind it, muffled moans, crying. Emma? Emma Turner, are you there? I shouted. A weak voice replied, Get me out of here. We broke down the door. Inside was a small cell, and there was Emma tied to a chair, with ritualistic marks drawn on her body in red ink. She was alive, but in deep shock. But she was not alone. There were 5 other girls there, all teenagers, all reported missing in different cities in North Carolina over the past 2 years. While my partner called ambulances, I tried to comfort the girls. That's when Emma managed to speak. They were going to make me his bride, she whispered. The leader, he said I would be the 7th wife, the final wife. the one who would bring about rebirth. Where is he? I asked. Where is the leader? Emma pointed to the circle of bodies. He's among them, but he's not dead. Not like the others. He said he would return, that the poison was only the first death, and that he would come back when the ritual was complete. We returned to the main chamber and examined the bodies more closely. That's when I noticed something bizarre. One of the bodies on the north side of the circle was positioned differently. Its hands weren't crossed over its chest like the others. They were open, palms up, as if it were waiting for something. And on his tunic there was a different inscription. The guide awaits the seventh seal. The body was that of a man in his 50s, thin, with a long grey beard, presumably the leader. We checked his pulse. Nothing, but her skin was still warm. That's when his eye opened, just one eye, staring directly at me. He didn't move, didn't breathe, but that eye was alive, and it stared at me with an intensity that made me recoil. Her lips moved, forming silent words that I could read. 6 were given, 1 was saved. The pact is incomplete. I will return. Then his eye closed, and this time, when we arrived, he really was dead. Further investigation revealed that the cult had been operating for nearly 15 years. Dozens of people had passed through, many leaving behind families who never knew what happened to them. The 6 girls we rescued were returned to their families, but all required years of therapy. Emma never spoke about what happened during the 3 days she spent on the farm before her mother called 911. She moves to a different city every few years, always looking over her shoulder, because there's something that hasn't been disclosed to the press, something that only we, the officers who were there that day, know. When the medical examiners went to remove the leader's body, it had disappeared. The chamber was sealed. There was no other way out. But when they returned to take it for the autopsy, that specific body simply wasn't there anymore. And even today, once a year, on the exact date of the mass suicide, Emma receives a letter with no return address. Inside, just one sentence written in red ink: "Soon, my bride." The 7th seal still awaits. Final reflection. These are just 3 of the many calls I've answered over the years. 3 nights that changed the way I see the world. People always ask how I can sleep after seeing these things. The truth is, I can't always, but I continue to answer calls, because for every horror story I've lived through, there are dozens of people I've been able to help in time. Children reunited with their parents, victims rescued from their abusers, lives saved. 911 is more than a number. It's a lifeline. And on the other side of that line, there are people like me, ready to run toward danger when everyone else is running away. If you're reading this and you work in emergencies, whether as a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, or dispatcher, you know what I'm talking about. We carry these stories with us. They change us, but they don't break us. Stay safe out there. And if you need help, don't hesitate. Call 911. We'll be there. We will always be there. Officer Derek Mitchell, Asheville Police Department, North Carolina. If you enjoyed these stories and want to read more disturbing accounts from police officers, paramedics, and 911 dispatchers, be sure to check out our complete ebook with over 50 true and rationalized stories. The link is in the pinned comments below. In the ebook, you will find more stories of terrifying 911 calls, unresolved cases, exclusive testimonials, bonus material with psychological analyses. Don't miss out. Click the link in the pinned comments and secure your copy now.